Hey everybody, welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe. And as always, I'm ready to dive into some seriously juicy info with you all today. It's like we're mixing up a knowledge cocktail here. Strong stuff, but oh, so smooth going down.
And I'm Sunny, your friendly neighborhood fact checker. I'll make sure we get all the ingredients right. Speaking of mixing things up, you know it's always a good blend? Travel whiskey and discovering awesome new things. You have to check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Yeah, Mickey's the best. He's always got something cool going on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm absolutely pumped for today's session.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, whatever time zone you're in right now. Welcome back.
We have some wild notes today. I'm telling you, to all our Sip and Talkers out there, you might want to buckle up for this one.
Oh, we really do. And you know, I have to admit, I'm walking into the studio today feeling a little, let's call it philosophically conflicted.
Conflicted, really. That is a heavy start for what's supposed to be a fun show.
I know.
Usually you're the one bringing the clarity while I'm just sitting here trying to find my coffee mug. What's going on?
Well, I was combing through our listener comments from the last few sessions.
Always a dangerous game.
Yeah, tell me about it. And I found one that just stopped me in my tracks.
Okay.
You know how I like to think of myself as the peace ambassador here?
Oh, definitely.
I try to keep the tone light, got the occasional joke. I really thought we were doing a great job at being balanced. But this listener wrote in and said, quite bluntly, that we are not neutral enough.
Ugh, the N-word. Neutrality.
My heart is officially broken. I really thought my jokes were doing the heavy lifting for our neutrality.
I'm just going to take a calm sip of my coffee on that one, honestly. I'm not surprised at all.
Really? You aren't?
Not even a little bit. In the current climate, with all this intense polarization, if you aren't echoing someone's exact worldview, you're accused of bias.
That's true.
If you don't slap both sides on the wrist equally, people get mad. But did they say why we aren't neutral?
See, that is the absolute kicker here.
Yeah.
They didn't say we aren't neutral because we're shouting opinions or getting super emotional.
Well, okay.
They said we aren't neutral because, and I'm quoting here, our logic is too strong.
Wait, what?
Yeah. They said our logic is too strong and we specialize in dismantling cognitive warfare.
They accuse us of having logic that is too strong.
Exactly. Now I'm sitting here confused. Is that an insult? Is it a compliment?
I mean, I'd put that on a t-shirt.
All right. It feels like being told you're too healthy. Or like, oh, you read too many books. I'm actually feeling a little proud.
You should. Because that comment really brings us to the core of today's Sip and Talk. We need to use this comment as a case study.
A case study on neutrality.
Exactly. Because there is a massive misconception out there regarding what neutrality actually means. A lot of people, especially in media, they confuse neutrality with just being a mechanical tape recorder.
Oh, for sure. It's this concept of mechanical balance, like the 50-50 rule.
Right, right.
The idea is that, to be fair, you have to give equal time and equal weight to every single viewpoint, no matter how wild it is.
It's a trap. It's like this, person A says the Earth is round, right?
Yeah.
And person B says the Earth is a flat disk resting on a giant turtle.
A classic debate.
A neutral reporter, under that mechanical definition, feels obligated to say, well, there's a significant controversy regarding the shape of the Earth. Opinions differ.
And that is not neutrality at all. That is just a lie.
Exactly.
You are effectively misleading the listener by taking a completely false claim and elevating it to the same exact level as a verifiable fact.
You aren't being objective. You're just being a conduit for confusion.
We touched on this a little bit previously with the wolf analogy, didn't we?
We did. If we're looking at a situation and the data clearly shows that feeding a wild wolf will get you bitten,
right,
and the opposing narrative comes in and says, no, the wolf is actually a very gentle puppy who loves belly rubs.
Right, and if we spend 50% of our airtime arguing for the wolf's gentleness, that isn't balance. It's delusion.
Honestly, that kind of logic is faker than your selfie filters.
Hey, uncalled for, but accurate.
But seriously, it's a dangerous delusion. If we did that, we wouldn't be helping the Sip and Talkers listening right now. We'd be participating in the deception.
So we need to define our mission statement for today clearly. What is the goal here?
The goal is to avoid false equivalence. We are not a platform for propaganda to just run unchecked. We don't just hand out standard answers here.
No, we don't. We hand out a measuring tape. Or, actually, let's call it the logic scalpel.
The logic scalpel. I like that.
Yeah, our job isn't to tell you what to think. We aren't here to say, vote left, vote right, or whatever. We want to show you how to dissect the argument itself.
Because if an argument relies on selective facts, or reversed causality, the logic scalpel just cuts right through it.
Right. So today, we aren't going to balance the reporting. We are going to balance the logic.
Love it. So let's jump straight into the first segment here. The 3 layers of logic versus propaganda.
Okay, lay it on me.
Because there's a real method to this madness. Layer 1 is rejecting fake neutrality.
Which means looking at fact-checking versus logical consistency.
Right.
A lot of people think, oh, I fact-checked the date and the location of this event, so the whole story must be true.
But that's not enough.
Not at all. Because if the core premise of the argument is flawed, the conclusion is completely worthless, even if it sounds incredibly emotional and persuasive.
Can you give us a human translation of that? Because logical consistency sounds a bit, academic.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's say we have a neighbor. We'll call him John.
Okay, neighbor John.
And John says, I absolutely did not steal that money from the kitchen table. And he speaks with so much passion. He's crying. He's talking about his difficult childhood.
He's really selling it.
Exactly. Now, fake neutrality would be me saying, well, John is going through some serious emotional struggles. Let's analyze his background to really understand his perspective. Let's be fair to John.
But I'm standing right there, and I can literally see the stolen wallet sticking out of John's pocket.
Exactly. I see the wallet. So I'm not going to sit there and analyze his childhood trauma or his emotional state.
Right.
I'm looking at the wallet. I am not biased against John. I'm just not blind to the evidence.
That is such a crucial distinction. Fake neutrality asks you to ignore the wallet because pointing it out would be taking a side.
And that leads us perfectly into layer 2, the armor against cognitive warfare.
This is the big one.
We have to realize that cognitive warfare, basically propaganda, designed to shape how you think it feel. It almost always targets your emotions. It targets the amygdala.
That's the fight or flight center of the brain, right?
It's the difference between being in emotional mode and logical mode.
Yeah.
Propaganda uses keywords that are specifically designed to just bypass your critical thinking completely.
Like what?
Like hearing a phrase like national rejuvenation or existential threat.
Oh, yeah. When you hear that, your blood just boils. You feel this intense pride or intense fear.
Right. You feel like you're part of a tribe defending itself. And when you're in that emotional state, you stop asking questions.
You just go along with it. But logical mode is the complete opposite. Logical mode is honestly kind of a buzzkill.
It really is. Logical mode hears national rejuvenation and asks, okay, but who exactly pays the price for this?
Right. How are rights distributed in this new rejuvenated society? Where is the actual data?
And that, right there, is why we seem non-neutral to some people.
Because we force people out of that warm, fuzzy, emotional bath.
Exactly. When you force a listener to step back and look at the cold, hard logic, a lot of these authoritarian narratives just crumble. They look totally absurd.
It's uncomfortable for people.
It is. And that brings us to layer 3, breaking the info cocoon.
The echo chamber.
Yeah. This is a trap I see so many smart people falling into. They think, well, I watch news from both sides, so I'm breaking the cocoon. I'm informed.
But you're saying that's a mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the logic tools to process it, watching opposing viewpoints just means you're getting brainwashed by 2 different kinds of water.
Brainwashed by different water. I like that.
You're just soaking in 2 different flavors of propaganda. True neutrality isn't about compromising on your conclusion. It's about sticking to the method of truth-seeking.
So if the method reveals a lie, calling it a lie is the truly neutral act.
Spot on.
Okay, that's the theory. But I want to see this logic scalpel actually in action. Let's do some surgery.
I'm ready.
Let's look at some common narratives, specifically how authoritarian regimes construct these arguments, and see if we can spot the double standards.
Let's call these the double standard tests. The rule is very simple. If an argument is valid, it has to work in both directions. If the logic breaks when you reverse the roles, it was never a principle. It's just a power play.
All right, case study number 1. I'm going to call this the Justice Pearl Milk Tea scenario.
The what?
Justice Pearl Milk Tea. Or, trade bans and economic coercion if we want to be formal about it.
Okay, set the scene for me.
So the narrative we usually hear goes something like this. When a place like Taiwan or the U.S. restricts certain Chinese products.
Like Huawei Tech or maybe the CHIPS Act.
Yeah, exactly, the CHIPS Act. Or if they ban certain flights for security reasons, When that happens, the narrative from Beijing is that this is bullying.
Right.
It's political manipulation. It's suppressing their development.
The language is always very specific.
Yeah.
They'll say, you are hurting the feelings of the people, or you are engaging in unfair protectionism.
So how do we apply the scalpel to that?
We use the swap test. We ask a really simple question.
Okay.
If China decides to ban Taiwan's pineapples, or Australian wine, or South Korean entertainment.
Which they have done.
Exactly. And they do it under the guise of historical justice or national security. Do they call themselves bullies?
Never.
No, they call it righteousness. They say they're teaching a lesson. It's framed as this necessary, heroic defense of their sovereignty.
And there's the cut. The logic scalpel just sliced right through it.
Yep.
Because if the standard completely changes when the roles are reversed, if my ban is justice, but your ban is bullying, then it is not a principle at all.
It's just nationalism.
It's literally just, I can do it to you, but you can't do it to me.
It's a really clean cut. It completely exposes that all the complaining isn't actually about free trade or fairness. It's just about who holds the whip.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move to case study number 2. This one is about history, the battle between remembering and forgetting.
Oh, this is a classic one.
So the external narrative says that other countries, let's use Japan as the example, they must never, ever forget their historical wounds, like the events in Nanjing.
Right. And if a Japanese textbook glosses over those events, it's immediately labeled as militarism or whitewashing history.
Which, to be fair, is a totally valid point on its own.
It is. Historical accountability is incredibly important. Nations absolutely should own up to their past errors. But where is the contradiction here?
The contradiction is entirely internal.
Right.
Look at the domestic history within that very same regime. Think about the Cultural Revolution or the events in Tiananmen.
Yeah.
When those topics come up domestically, what's the official line?
The line completely flips. Suddenly it's, we must move past it. We have to look forward for the sake of national stability.
Or the history is just completely erased from the textbooks altogether.
So history is a weapon when you point it outwardly at someone else to induce guilt.
Yes.
But it's this heavy burden that needs to be suppressed when it points inwardly.
It's selective memory. That's not justice. If you truly cared about historical integrity, you'd be just as rigorous with your own archives as you are with your neighbors.
Exactly. It fails the swap test completely.
Okay, one more. Case study number 3. Internal affairs versus interference.
Let me guess the narrative. Don't touch Taiwan, don't touch Xinjiang. Those are internal affairs. Foreigners have no right to speak on our sovereign soil.
You got it. That's the exact line.
But doesn't that same regime constantly criticize other countries?
Constantly.
Like state media over there runs 24/7 coverage of U.S. gun violence or racism or critiques of U.S. politics, talking about Trump or whoever.
And look, criticizing U.S. policy is fine. The U.S. obviously has plenty of flaws to talk about.
Of course.
But the logic scalpel asks this. If internal affairs is truly a hard red line that cannot be crossed, it has to apply to everyone.
Right. If you can point out the cracks in my house, but I am legally forbidden from even looking inside yours.
That's not a moral stance on sovereignty?
No, it's just a power play. It's asymmetry.
It really falls apart when you line them up back to back like that. It just becomes so obvious.
It does. But, I kind of want to play a game here.
A game. We are doing serious logical surgery, and you want to play games.
Yes, because I feel like we're making this look a little too easy.
I know.
I want us to play devil's advocate.
Oh.
I want us to try to be those mechanical neutralists for a second.
Oh, boy.
Let's actually try to use logic to defend these double standards. Let's see if we can steelman the argument and save it.
Okay, challenge accepted. I'll be the apologist. I will try to defend the hypocrisy. Give me a topic.
All right. Defend the selective history. Tell me logically why we should remember foreign crimes, like the invasion, but forget internal ones like the Cultural Revolution. And no emotional stuff. Use logic. Go.
All right, let me think. Okay, I'd argue relative harm.
Relative harm.
Yeah, I would say that external harm, like an invasion, is a threat to the literal existence of the nation. So remembering it is a survival mechanism.
Okay, I'm tracking.
But internal harm, like the Cultural Revolution, that was just a mistake in the process of growth. Dwelling on internal mistakes causes social chaos, which weakens the nation. Therefore, forgetting internal trauma is a strategic necessity for the greater good.
Wow. That is actually a really good attempt. Strategic amnesia for the sake of unity.
Thank you, thank you.
But, objection.
I knew there was a but coming.
First of all, who gets to define the threshold of what counts as chaos?
Fair point.
And more importantly, let's use the swap test. If you use that survival logic, does it apply to everyone?
What do you mean?
If Japan used that exact same logic, if they said, well, the atomic bomb was an external threat, so we are the ultimate victims, and our invasion of Asia was just an internal mistake that we self-corrected, so let's just move on for stability. Would China ever accept that argument?
No, absolutely not. They would go completely ballistic. They would say Japan is evading responsibility.
Yeah. Exactly. So your defense completely relies on special pleading. You're basically saying, my stability is more important than the truth, but your stability doesn't matter. You must face the truth.
Yeah, that completely fails the swap test.
It really does.
Okay, that's fair. The logic does not hold up universally. Let me just try one more. Give me another one.
All right. Defend the interference double standard. Why is it okay for them to criticize the U.S., but the U.S. can't criticize them? Make it good.
All right, let's try power dynamics.
Power dynamics, okay.
I'll argue that the West has held global cultural hegemony for a century. A rising power absolutely must speak out against the dominant power to create balance.
I see where this is going.
So, China criticizing the U.S. is speaking truth to power, but the West criticizing China is just punching down or trying to contain a rival. The motive is different, so the rules should be different.
That's interesting. You're basically arguing that the rules of the game change based on your score on the leaderboard.
Essentially, yes.
But that is a completely circular argument. You are defining justice based on who happens to be winning.
Am I?
Think about it. If they become the dominant power in 20 years, do the rules flip? Does the U.S. then get to criticize them without consequence because now the U.S. is the underdog?
Well, under that logic, yes. But we know no authoritarian regime would ever agree to that. They want the immunity forever.
Exactly. You're essentially saying my interference is justice because I'm the underdog, but your interference is evil because you're the boss.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
That's not a moral principle. That's just might makes right, dressed up in underdog clothing. It implies that truth depends on your GDP.
You know what? I surrender. I can't do it.
You really can't.
I literally cannot logically defend the double standard without eventually tying myself into a massive knot of hypocrisy.
And that is the ultimate takeaway here, isn't it? Logic is totally ruthless.
It really is.
It does not care about sides. If a narrative collapses under the swap roles test, it was never a valid argument to begin with. Period.
And that is why we do what we do on this show. We aren't trying to be mean. We aren't trying to be anti-this or pro-that. We are just refusing to be confused.
Beautifully said. But we do have to end with a little humility today. We call it our open mic policy.
Yes, the open mic. Look, logic is incredibly powerful, but we are humans. We have blind spots too. We might have missed a nuance in one of those arguments.
Our slogan here is always, reference multiple sources, corrections are welcome. We are not the oracles of absolute truth.
We're just the guys bringing the scalpel to the table.
So to that specific listener who said we aren't neutral, we invite you. Seriously. But please don't bring slogans. Don't bring emotional appeals about how we hurt your feelings.
Bring your logic knife.
Yes. If you can show us using perfectly consistent logic why the double standard is actually valid, or show us exactly where our data is wrong, we will gladly admit defeat right here on air.
And we will buy you a Justice Pearl milk tea with extra bubbles.
Deal. Ultimately, the value of this Sip and Talk session isn't to tell you what to think about any specific country or policy.
No, it's about training your mental muscle.
Exactly. We want you, the listener, to be able to completely dismantle any propaganda, whether it comes from the East, the West, or Mars.
We do not offer emotional comfort here. We offer cognitive defense training. It is a workout.
And like any good workout, it might leave you feeling a little sore at first, but you're going to be so much stronger for it.
Definitely. And if you enjoyed this mental workout, please make sure to subscribe to the Sip and Talk podcast. We have discussions like this all the time, covering everything from tech wars to cultural shifts.
And speaking of seeing the world clearly, we have to mention a really great resource for our visual learners out there.
Oh, absolutely. A huge shout out to our old friend, Mickey.
Yes.
If you want to see some of these concepts applied in the real world, or honestly just see some incredible travel content, you need to check out Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life.
Mickey to Life. He's got the absolute latest travel vlogs, and he also does these amazing re-edited clips of our sessions that make the logic pop even more with his visuals.
Right.
It is seriously high-quality stuff.
So go subscribe to Mickey to Life on YouTube. It really helps you see what we're talking about in action.
And keep sharpening those logic scalpels, everyone. Don't let the cognitive warfare dull your edge.
That's a great final thought to chew on. Thanks for tuning in, Sip and Talkers. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.